What started as another cruel day on the playground turned into something no one could have imagined. A boy cornered, mocked, and shoved for being different, until 30 grown men and women stepped out of the shadows, not with sirens or force, but with something far more powerful. But what looked like a miracle soon sparked a firestorm. Overnight, a small act of compassion became a national controversy. Some called it hope, others called it a setup. And buried inside this story is a secret no one saw coming, a truth that could shatter reputations, destroy careers, and change lives forever. Was this a moment of real kindness, or the beginning of a battle that would tear a whole town apart? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The October air bit sharp against Eli's cheeks as he settled into his spot by the brick wall. His fingers found their rhythm, left pencil, left, right, against the rough surface. The pattern matched the Cardinals' morning song he'd memorized last spring. 3-2-3 pause, 3-2-3 pause. The playground chaos faded, just him and the beat. Look at the weirdo. Mason Lang's voice cut through the rhythm. Eli's pencil stuttered. What's he even doing? Another boy, Tommy from math class, joined Mason, then Jake. Then 3 more Eli couldn't name without looking up. He kept his eyes on the bricks. Hey, I'm talking to you. Mason stepped closer. You deaf too? Eli's left pencil tapped faster. The cardinal pattern broke apart. Oh wait, watch this. Mason flapped his hands beside his head, mimicking the way Eli sometimes moved when excited. Look, I'm special too. The other boys laughed. The circle tightened. Bet his mom wishes she had a real son, Tommy said. Not some broken What's wrong with being black and retarded? Jake cut in. Like pick one. Eli's pencils dropped. His hands pressed flat against the wall, feeling for the familiar texture, but the bricks felt wrong now. Too cold, too many shadows falling across them. Aw, gonna cry? Mason leaned in. Gonna run to Mommy? Oh wait, she's never around, is she? The boys pressed closer. Someone shoved Eli's shoulder, light, but enough to break his balance. His hands flew up, flapping. He couldn't stop them. And the laughter got louder. There it is! Do the thing. More mimicking. 6 boys now, all flapping their hands, surrounding him in a wall of mockery. Eli's breath came in short bursts. Words stuck in his throat like stones. The playground spun. Too bright, too loud. Where were the teachers? Mrs. Chen always stood by the swings, but she was across the blacktop pulling apart 2 fifth graders wrestling over a basketball. What's in your pockets, weirdo? Mason grabbed at Eli's jacket. Got your little toys? Eli jerked back, stumbling. His routine, his safe routine, morning snack at 10:15, library at 10:40, lunch at 12:05, shattered like dropped glass. Leave him alone. Sophia Ortiz rounded the corner, 3 hand drums stacked in her arms. Her eyes took in the scene. Eli backed against the wall, the circle of boys. Mason's sneer. Mind your business, Mason shot back. We're just playing. That's not playing. She set the drums down carefully, keeping her movements slow. She'd learned that from working with kids like Eli. No sudden moves when someone was already overwhelmed. Eli, you okay? Eli's eyes darted to her face, then away. His fingers found each other, pressing in the pattern 1-2-3, 1-2-3 that meant help in their drum circle language. I said, mind your, I'm getting my dad. Sophia's voice carried the same steady authority she'd inherited from Daniel. All of you, stay right there. Your dad's not a real cop here, Tommy called after her. He's just painting or whatever. But Sophia was already running. She found Daniel in the library, roller in hand, halfway through the children's section wall. Paint speckled his civilian clothes, jeans and an old police athletic league t-shirt. Around him, 29 other off-duty officers worked in similar attire, transforming the dingy beige walls into a cheerful sky blue. Dad? She didn't need to say more. Something in her face made him set down the roller immediately. Where? East Wall. Mason Lang and others. They've got Eli surrounded. Daniel's jaw tightened. He knew Eli, the boy who'd returned his wife's memorial badge charm at the farmer's market 6 months ago, noticing the pattern in the brass that matched the other badges at their booth. The boy who drummed everything, who saw music where others saw noise. "Martinez?" Daniel called to his colleague painting nearby. "Need you." Officer Lisa Martinez looked up, paint smudging her cheek. Daniel's expression told her everything. "How many?" she asked, already moving. "Get everyone, sir," Daniel said quietly. "But calm. We walk. Don't run. No uniforms means we're just neighbors helping a kid." Word spread in seconds, the efficient communication of people trained to move as one unit. Paintbrushes dropped into trays. Books settled onto shelves. 30 adults in paint-stained clothes and sneakers began walking toward the east wall. Daniel led them at a measured pace. No urgency in his stride that might escalate, just purpose. They rounded the building as Mason raised his hand, maybe to push, maybe to grab. The boy froze mid-motion as 30 adults materialized around the corner, not threatening, not shouting, just there, suddenly, like a wave of concerned neighbors who happened to coordinate their arrival. "Hey there," Daniel said, his voice carrying the same tone he'd used for a lost child at the mall. "Everything okay here?" The circle of boys stumbled backward. Mason's sneer dissolved. "We were just, Mason started. "I can see what you were doing." Daniel knelt to Eli's eye level, still 10 feet away, giving him space. His hands moved slowly, deliberately, signing the simple greeting Sophia had taught him. "Hello, friend." Eli's fingers stilled against each other. His eyes tracked the familiar signs. The officers spread out like water finding its level, each one dropping to child height. No commands, no stern faces, just 30 adults who understood that fear couldn't fix what cruelty had broken. "Freeze tag," Officer Martinez announced, touching Tommy's shoulder with theatrical flair. "You're it." Tommy blinked, confused. "What?" "Better run." She grinned, already backing away. "Unless you want to be frozen all recess." The transformation was instant. Kids who'd been pressing in now scattered across the blacktop, shrieking with delight. Mason stood frozen, not from the game, but from shock, as Officer Rodriguez jogged past him. "You coming or what?" Rodriguez called over his shoulder. "Can't let the grown-ups win." The circle shattered. Boys who'd been predators seconds ago became prey in a game, their laughter replacing their taunts. Even Mason, after a moment's hesitation, bolted toward the jungle gym. Daniel stayed low, still 10 feet from Eli. The boy's chest rose and fell too fast, his fingers tapping against his thighs, not in rhythm, but in chaos. "Hey, Eli." Daniel's voice stayed soft as flannel. His hands moved through the signs Sophia had drilled into him during their kitchen table practice sessions. "Friend, safe. Breathe." Eli's eyes tracked the movements. His fingers slowed, finding their pattern again. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. "That's it." Daniel shifted slightly, angling so Eli could see the playground behind him. The officers playing, the danger dissolved. Just like drum circle, right? Find your beat. Around them, the playground transformed. Officer Washington, a grandmother of 6, had 3 first-graders hanging off her arms as she pretended to struggle forward. Officer Kim sprawled dramatically on the blacktop, frozen, while kids danced around him. No badges, no authority, just neighbors who happened to know how to turn tension into play. "My baby!" Harriet Green's voice cut through the laughter. She rounded the building at a near run, her designer heels clicking against concrete, her CEO composure cracking at the edges. Her eyes swept the scene. Officers everywhere, kids running, Eli against the wall, and for one terrible second her mind went to the worst place. Then she saw Daniel's position, protective but not aggressive. Saw the laughter, not tears. Saw Eli's fingers moving in rhythm, not panic. She dropped beside her son, her hands hovering, not touching. She'd learned not to grab him when he was overwhelmed. "Eli, baby, are you—" His hand found hers. 3 deliberate presses against her palm. Their signal, worked out 2 years ago when words became too hard. I'm safe. The relief hit her like a physical force. Her shoulders sagged. The tears she'd been fighting since getting the call from the school, "There's a situation with Eli," finally escaped. "Oh, sweetheart." Eli leaned into her just slightly. His free hand kept tapping against his leg, but slower now, steadier. "Mrs. Green?" Daniel stood slowly, giving them space. He did great, kept his calm even when things got rough. She looked up at him, this man in paint-stained clothes who'd transformed a crisis into a game. The other boys are learning that tag's more fun than teasing. Daniel's eyes found Mason, now frozen mid-run, while Officer Patel pretended to struggle against the ice. "We'll sort out consequences later. Right now, everybody needs to come down from the adrenaline." 3 teachers stood at the playground's edge, phones raised, not calling for help, recording. Mrs. Patterson's hand shook slightly as she captured Officer Martinez, letting a kindergartner unfreeze her with a gentle tap. Mr. Brooks focused on the wider scene, 30 adults turning fear into play, one scared boy finding his rhythm again. "This is—" Mrs. Patterson lowered her phone, then raised it again. "People need to see this." The game spread across the playground like wildfire. Kids who hadn't been part of the original conflict joined in, begging officers to chase them. The lunch monitors, initially alarmed by the mass of adults on their playground, relaxed as they recognized faces. The woman who ran story time at the library, the man who coached Little League, the officer who always bought Girl Scout cookies by the case. "Can you walk?" Hattie asked Eli softly. He nodded, his hand still in hers. Together they stood, moving toward the sensory room inside. Daniel walked with them, maintaining distance but presence. "Thank you," Hattie said quietly. "All of you. You didn't have to—" "He found my wife's badge charm." Daniel's voice carried something deep. "At the farmer's market. Noticed the pattern in the brass. Matched it to our booth. My Rosa wore that charm every shift until—" He stopped. "Point is, we remember kids who see what others miss." Behind them, the playground sang with laughter. Mason, unfrozen now, ran with the others, his earlier cruelty forgotten in the rush of the game. But Daniel made a mental note. Consequences would come, just not through force or fear. Mrs. Patterson's phone captured one last image. Eli walking between his mother and Daniel, his fingers drumming against his leg in perfect time, while behind them 30 officers played like children, protecting through joy instead of power. She posted it immediately. Within an hour, Cedar Ridge would wake up to a different story than the one they expected. The kitchen smelled like butter noodles and applesauce. Eli's Tuesday dinner, same as every Tuesday. Hattie watched him separate each noodle into perfect parallel lines before eating them one by one. Her phone sat face up beside her plate, notifications blooming across the screen like digital wildfire. "Mama's phone is loud," Eli said without looking up. She turned it to silent, but couldn't stop herself from picking it up. The video had exploded. 20,000 shares in 3 hours. Comments poured in faster than the platform could load them. Finally, police who remember, they're human beings. This is what community looks like. Pure propaganda. Convenient they had cameras rolling, showboating while real crime happens. Typical. Her corporate instincts kicked in, calculating angles, anticipating backlash. SwiftSpan's PR team would want a statement by morning. The board would have opinions. Victor Lang definitely would, considering his son. "Drumsticks stay at the table?" Eli asked, holding up the pair he'd carried all day. "Just tonight." She reached across, smoothing his hair. He tolerated it for exactly 3 seconds before ducking away. "Bath time soon, okay?" 8:15 bath, 8:30 pajamas, 8:45 stories. That's right. Her phone vibrated against the table, Daniel Ortiz calling. She almost didn't answer. The day had been enough. But something about how he'd knelt by Eli, how he'd known not to touch him without permission. "Hello?" "Mrs. Green. Just wanted to check how Eli's doing." She moved to the living room, keeping Eli in sight through the doorway. He's okay. Eating his noodles in order, so that's normal. Thank you for calling. Look, I saw the videos making rounds. Wanted you to know none of us expected cameras. We weren't there as police today. What do you mean? Unity in Blue. It's our volunteer program. Every third Tuesday, whoever's off duty comes to read with kids, paint classrooms, whatever the school needs. Today we had 30 folks repainting the library. Teal and sunshine yellow. Principal Chen picked the colors. Hattie sank into the couch. You were already there, not responding to a call. Been coming for 2 years. Officer Washington reads picture books with a different voice for every character. Martinez teaches kids to count in Spanish. Kim brings his therapy dog once a month. A pause. We love that school, Mrs. Green. Half of us have kids or grandkids there. Through the doorway, Eli lined up his last 3 noodles with scientific precision. Why? The question came out sharper than intended. Why do you care so much? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? About your son? Her stomach tightened. What about him? Few months back, the farmer's market. I was working our community booth. We do bike registration, child ID kits. My wife's badge charm fell off my keychain. Little brass thing shaped like a heart. Rosa wore it every shift for 15 years until she... He cleared his throat. Anyway, I didn't even notice it was gone. Hattie remembered that Saturday. Eli had spent 20 minutes studying the pattern in the concrete, tracking cracks like a maze. Your boy walked up to our booth holding that charm. He'd found it 3 stalls down, recognized the brass, matched our badge displays. Noticed what I'd missed. Daniel's voice warmed. He didn't say much, just handed it over and pointed to where it belonged, but he saw the pattern. He knew it mattered. He notices everything, Hattie whispered. The whole department knows that story. Washington carries the little thank you card he made, all drums and birds drawn in perfect rows. So when Sophia ran up today saying Eli needed help, we didn't hesitate. Your boys already helped us, Mrs. Green. We just returned the favor. Eli appeared in the doorway, drumsticks in one hand, his plastic cup in the other. 8:15. Bath time, she confirmed. Mr. Ortiz, I should go. One more thing. The video. People will say what they say. But those kids today saw grown-ups choose play over power. That matters more than comment sections. After they hung up, Hattie ran Eli's bath exactly 3 inches deep, added 2 drops of lavender oil, and set his rubber ducks in their designated spots. He climbed in, still clutching his drumsticks. Those'll get wet, baby. They're brave today, she didn't argue. While he splashed out rhythms against the tub's edge, she scrolled through more comments. The Cedar Ridge Community Facebook page had exploded. Local news had picked it up. The headline made her wince. Viral video shows unusual police response to school bullying. Unusual, like kindness was an anomaly. By 8:45, Eli was in his train pajamas, tucked under his weighted blanket. She read exactly 3 books, no more, no less, while he tapped silent rhythms against his leg. The officers were nice, he said suddenly. Yes, they were. Mason wasn't nice? Her throat tightened. He'd noticed. Of course he'd noticed. No, baby, he wasn't. Will he be nice tomorrow? She had no answer for that. Instead, she kissed his forehead. He allowed it at bedtime, and turned on his star projector. Green stars rotated slowly across the ceiling in predictable patterns. Eli fell asleep with both drumsticks pressed against his chest, like armor against tomorrow's uncertainties. Downstairs, Hattie's phone lit up with messages. Victor Lang wanted an emergency call. 3 board members had forwarded the video with question marks. The PTA president asked if she'd make a statement. Outside, Cedar Ridge slept, unaware that by morning their small playground moment would become a national conversation about police, compassion, and what protection really meant. The phone rang at 6:43, 13 minutes before Hattie's alarm. Principal Chen's voice carried the careful tone of someone delivering bad news with paperwork attached. Mrs. Green, I need you to know before the formal meeting. The lead student yesterday was Mason Lang. Hattie sat up. The ceiling fan clicked overhead, counting seconds. Victor's son? Yes, I'll need both families present for a restorative conference at 8:30. After Chen hung up, Hattie found Eli at the kitchen table, Cheerios arranged in perfect concentric circles. His left wrist showed purple where yesterday's shoving had twisted it wrong. "Time for school," she kept her voice light. He didn't look up. "No." "Eli." "No school today, or tomorrow, or next Tuesday." She recognized the pattern. He always planned in sets of 3. She slid into the chair across from him, careful not to disturb his cereal art. "What if I come with you, just for morning announcements?" His fingers found the table's edge, tapping out consideration. "You'll stay?" "For the whole announcements." "Even the lunch menu part?" "Even the lunch menu." He nodded once, then returned to his circles. At 8:30 sharp, they sat in Principal Chen's office. Mason slumped in his chair, studying his sneakers. His apology came out like pulled teeth. "Sorry for yesterday, won't happen again." "Mason," Chen prompted. "We practiced saying it to Eli directly." The boy's eyes flickered up, then down. "Sorry, Eli." Eli tapped his good hand against his thigh, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, but said nothing. Victor burst through the door at 8:42, Cologne preceding him like a herald. His suit cost more than most people's cars. "Apologies, Ruth. Conference call with Singapore ran over." He dropped into the remaining chair without acknowledging Hattie. "Mason's apologized, I assume? Good. Kids will be kids. These things happen." "These things," Chen said carefully, included racial slurs and physical intimidation. "He's 11. They all say stupid things." "Mr. Lang, We'll handle it at home." Victor stood, straightening his tie. "Mason, get to class." The boy scrambled out. Victor lingered at the door, finally meeting Hattie's eyes. "Walk with me." It wasn't a request. In the empty hallway, his voice dropped to boardroom temperature. "That video is everywhere. 3 board members called me this morning." "About your son's behavior?" "About optics. A CEO's kid involved in a police incident. The narrative writes itself." He checked his phone, then pocketed it. "Handle this quietly, Hattie. The company doesn't need this story. Neither do you. My son was surrounded by bullies. Your son, Ma, is a child who made a mistake. Don't turn this into something that damages both our careers." He smiled, sharp as quarterly reports. "The board meeting is next month. Would hate for this to affect confidence in leadership." After he left, Hattie stood in the hallway listening to morning announcements echo through ancient speakers. Today's lunch included turkey sandwiches, apple slices, and chocolate milk. Eli would eat none of it, but he'd needed to hear the list. That afternoon, she found herself in the basement of St. Matthew's, where folding chairs circled like wagons against the world. Reverend Lila Monroe poured coffee strong enough to wake the dead. "You look tired, child. Victor's son led the bullying. Now Victor wants me to make it disappear." Lila settled into her chair, her presence filling the room despite her small frame. "What do you want?" "I want my son safe. I want my job secure. I want to not have to choose." "But you do have to choose." Hattie's coffee tasted bitter. Mason gave the worst apology I've ever heard. Looked at his shoes the whole time. Boys probably never had to really apologize before. His daddy fixes everything with money or muscle. He's 11. Old enough to know better? Old enough to learn better if someone teaches him. Lila leaned forward. "You're angry. You should be, but anger's just fear in work clothes." "I'm not afraid." "No? Then why are you here instead of in Victor's office?" The fluorescent lights hummed. Somewhere upstairs, choir practice started, voices finding harmony through repetition. "He could tank my career. The board listens to him." "Fear will always ask you to sit down," Lila said. "But love asks you to stand up, even when your knees shake, especially then." "Easy for you to say?" "Nothing about faith is easy, but Eli's watching how you handle this. What do you want him to learn?" That evening, Hattie sat at her desk, journal open. pen hovering. Through the wall she heard Eli drumming against his windowsill, soft, steady, finding rhythm in glass and wood. "Victor thinks this is about optics," she wrote, "but it's about Eli knowing he matters more than anyone's comfort. It's about Mason learning consequences exist. It's about 30 officers who chose kindness when they could have chosen control." The drumming stopped. Eli appeared in her doorway. "Tomorrow is school?" "Tomorrow is school." "Will Mason be there?" "Yes." He processed this, fingers tapping against the doorframe. "Will you be there?" "If you need me." "Not for announcements, just there, in the world." She set down her pen. "Always, baby, always in the world." He padded back to his room, and the drumming resumed, louder now, more confident, like hope keeping time against the coming storm. The Thursday morning news played on every screen at the Rise and Grind Cafe. Channel 7's anchor leaned into the camera with practiced concern. Bullies surrounded CEO's autistic son, then single dad walked over with 30 officers. The chyron scrolled beneath footage of Daniel's officers kneeling on the playground, transforming tension into tag. The same clip Hattie had watched 50 times since Tuesday. "Some call it community policing at its finest," the anchor continued. "Others question whether this level of police presence belongs in our schools at all." Daniel stirred sugar into his black coffee, watching steam rise. Across from him, Hattie gripped her cup like an anchor. "They got the headline right, at least." "That's what bothers you? The accuracy?" "No," he met her eyes. "What bothers me is that doing the right thing became controversial." The bell above the door chimed. A cluster of mothers entered, their voices carrying, "30 cops for one incident is excessive." "My daughter felt safer seeing them there." "Militarizing our schools." "They were playing tag, not carrying riot shields." Hattie's shoulders tightened. Daniel noticed. He noticed everything she was learning. The way Eli had noticed his lost badge charm. Pattern recognition must run in their orbits. "The school board scheduled an emergency hearing," she said. "Monday night. They're voting on whether to ban all police partnerships." "I know. Got the email at 5 this morning." "And I'll show up. Explain what we actually do. Hope they listen." A woman approached their table, phone already out. "You're them? From the video." Hattie's CEO mask snapped into place, but the woman wasn't looking for scandal. "My nephew's autistic. Seeing those officers treat that boy with such gentleness—" Her voice caught. "Thank you. Both of you." She left before they could respond. Daniel shifted in his seat, uncomfortable with gratitude. "Does that happen often?" Hattie asked. "Since Tuesday? Every hour." "You don't like it." "I became a cop to serve, not to be served." He turned his coffee cup in precise quarter rotations. "Sophia says I'm allergic to compliments." "Smart girl." "Gets it from her mother." The past tense hung between them. Hattie had Googled him, widowed 3 years. Wife died of an undiagnosed heart condition. She'd been 38, same age Hattie was when she'd divorced. "The hearing," she said, steering back to solid ground. "What's your plan?" "Tell the truth. Show the data. We've been running programs here for 2 years. Reading buddies, garden club, homework help. All off-duty, all voluntary. Suspension rates down 18%, reading scores up 12. You memorized the statistics. I memorized everything that matters." He paused. "Your boy, Eli? He matters." The simplicity of it caught her off guard. No qualification, no agenda, just fact, plain as sunrise. "The board won't care about one kid." "Then they're on the wrong board." An elderly man shuffled over, leaning on a walker. "Sergeant Ortiz, you coached my grandson in Little League, Tommy Morrison?" Daniel stood immediately, steadying the man's elbow. "Tommy, kid had a wicked curveball. How's he doing?" "Sophomore at Ohio State, pre-med." The man's eyes watered. "You told him he could be anything. He believed you." After the man left, Daniel sat back down, clearly overwhelmed by the attention. "Allergic," Hattie said softly. Completely. Her phone buzzed. Victor, board members asking questions. Control the narrative or it controls you. She flipped it, face down. He wants me to make this disappear. Can't disappear something everyone's already seen. He has influence. Half the board owes him favors. And the other half? Parents? Teachers? People who actually care what happens in schools. Daniel leaned forward. Then we talked to them, not the suits, the people in the trenches, the ones who see kids struggling every day. You make it sound simple. Right and wrong usually is. It's the politics that complicate things. The coffee shop's TV cycled back to their story. This time they'd added a panel of talking heads debating whether police belonged near children at all. One panelist called Daniel a publicity-seeking cowboy. Another called Hattie an absent mother using cops as babysitters. Daniel reached over and gently turned her chair away from the screen. Don't watch that noise. It's not noise if the board believes it. The board will believe what we show them, and what we'll show them is 30 officers who spent their day off painting a library. Kids reading with cops who look like them, who speak their languages. Your son knowing someone will always show up for him. You really think it's that simple? I think Eli deserves to feel safe at school. I think Mason Lang deserves to learn accountability. I think every kid in Cedar Ridge deserves adults who give a damn. He stood, leaving cash on the table. That's not simple, but it is clear. Outside, the November air bit sharp. They walked to their cars, breath clouding between them. Monday night, Hattie said. We fight for this. Together? She thought of Eli's drumming, of Victor's threats, of Reverend Lila's words about love requiring standing. Together! Daniel smiled, a small, rare thing. Good, Sophia's making signs. Fair warning, she's discovered glitter glue. Despite everything, Hattie laughed. Above them, Cedar Ridge's old courthouse clock chimed 10 times, counting down to Monday's reckoning. Saturday morning light cut through the precinct's chain-link fence. Catching on the wet soil, Daniel turned with his spade. Beside him, Sophia knelt among rows of seedlings, her hands black with potting mix. Marigolds for the kindergarten beds, she said, sorting plastic trays. Tomatoes for the second-grade science project. And these? Daniel held up a cluster of purple flowers. Lavender for Eli's sensory corner. Daniel paused. His daughter had been planning this for weeks, long before Tuesday's incident. You knew he'd need it? Dad, half the kids need it. They just don't know how to ask. 3 officers in civilian clothes hauled bags of mulch from a pickup truck. Officer Chen, no relation to the principal, waved at a passing family. The mother grabbed her child's hand, walked faster. They're scared of us, Chen said quietly. They're scared of the uniform, Daniel corrected. That's why we're here, in jeans. But the distinction felt thin. Daniel watched the mother disappear around the corner, shoulders hunched against more than cold. Across town, Eli's sneakers scraped wood chips as he climbed the playground structure. Hattie sat on a bench below, tracking his movements while pretending to read emails. That's her, a voice drifted from the swings. The CEO, who brought 30 cops to school, using her kid for publicity. Disgusting. Hattie's jaw locked. She forced herself not to turn, not to engage, but her phone screen blurred as anger made her hands shake. Above her, Eli stopped climbing. He'd heard them too. She could tell from the way his fingers started their rapid tap, tap, tap against the metal rail. Mama? She looked up. His face was pinched with that particular anxiety she'd learned to read like weather. Did I do wrong? The question cracked something in her chest. She stood, helped him down, pulled him against her coat. No, baby. You did everything right. Everything. His small body trembled against hers. Then why are they mad? They're not mad at you. They're mad at grown-up things that have nothing to do with you. But it started with me. With the boys. With the circle. She pulled back, framed his face with her hands. Listen to me. You were brave. You stayed calm when they were cruel. You let Daniel help you. That's not wrong. That's strength. He processed this in his methodical way, eyes tracking left to right like he was reading invisible text. Daniel's daughter has drums, he said finally. She does. Can I learn? We'll ask her. They left the park early, Eli's hand tight in hers. The whispers followed them to the parking lot. Reverend Leela's church basement smelled of old coffee and new hope. Folding chairs formed a circle, deliberately incomplete. No head, no hierarchy. Hattie arrived to find Daniel already there, helping arrange seats. Sophia, she asked. Youth group movie night. Figured this might get heavy. It did. Maria Gonzalez went first, her voice steady but her hands shaking. My son was handcuffed at 14. Wrong place, wrong skin color. Now he won't look officers in the eye. Officer Williams followed. I became a cop because my neighborhood needed protectors who looked like us, but my own nephew crosses the street when he sees my squad car. A white teacher named Brad spoke next. I called for help with a student having a meltdown. The officer who came, he made it worse, grabbed him. Kid was traumatized. Then Mrs. Chen, the principal's mother it turned out, different officer talked my granddaughter through a panic attack last year. Sat on the floor with her for an hour. She still writes him thank you cards. Story after story, wound after wound, hope tangled with hurt. Daniel listened without defending, without explaining, just absorbing. I want to trust, said James, a black father of 3. But how? When the uniform means safety for some kids and danger for mine. You teach us, Daniel said simply. You tell us what safety looks like for your children. We adjust. We learn. We earn it. That's it? That's your grand solution? That's the beginning. Solutions come from listening first. Reverend Lila let silence settle before speaking. Fear and love can't share the same seat. Tonight, we're choosing which one drives. A mother raised her hand. My daughter is autistic. Tuesday, she saw the video. First time she's ever said police are helpers. That matters. My son saw it too, another parent countered. Said if he acts weird enough, cops will protect him. What about kids who can't perform disability? The questions had no easy answers. The circle held them all. Anger, grief, tentative hope. Small steps, Reverend Lila said finally. Programs with accountability. Officers out of uniform when possible. Parents involved at every stage. Build trust one relationship at a time. Outside afterward, November air sharp enough to cut, Hattie found Daniel leaning against his truck. Thank you, she said, for walking into that fire. We walked together, or not at all. The simplicity of it, the certainty, made her throat tight. Monday's hearing could end everything, or begin it. You really believe that? He looked back at the church, warm light spilling from windows. I believe in Cedar Ridge. We're better than our worst moments. And if the board disagrees? Then we prove them wrong. One garden, one drumbeat, one kid at a time. Hattie thought of Eli asking if he'd done wrong, of the whispers at the park, of Victor's threats. Together, she said. Together. Monday would come with television cameras and board members with agendas, but Saturday night, in a church parking lot with frost forming on windshields, 2 single parents stood in agreement. Their children deserved better than fear. Cedar Ridge deserved better than fear. The work would be slow, imperfect, complicated. It had already begun. Monday arrived wrapped in fog thick enough to muffle sound. Hattie woke before her alarm, found Eli already dressed, sitting at the kitchen table with his backpack perfectly aligned to the table's edge. Couldn't sleep? He shook his head, fingers drumming a nervous pattern on his thighs. Me neither. She poured cereal, added exactly 8 blueberries, his requirement. But today will be different. Different how? Better different. Principal Chen has plans. His drumming slowed. Plans for me? Plans for everyone. To make school safer for kids like you. There aren't kids like me. The certainty in his voice broke her heart a little. There are more than you think, baby. They're just quiet about it. He considered this through 3 spoonfuls of cereal. Will the boys be there? Yes, but so will I. So will Principal Chen. So will Sophia. Sophia has drums. She does. Real ones? We'll find out. They drove through empty streets, the town still waking. At the school entrance, Principal Chen stood waiting despite the cold, her smile genuine but determined, a woman ready for battle. Eli, I'm glad you're here. She crouched to his eye level. We're trying something new today. You get to help us test it. He studied her face with that intense focus that made people uncomfortable. Chen didn't flinch. Test what? Whether we can make recess better, for everyone. Inside, the hallway buzzed with unusual energy. Parents lingered, teachers huddled in conversation, and in the main corridor, new signs appeared. Quiet zone, movement space, buddy station. Chen led them to the gymnasium where 30 teachers sat in a circle, an echo of Saturday's church basement. A woman with silver braids and kind eyes stood at the center. This is Dr. Patterson. She specializes in sensory-inclusive education. Every child deserves to feel safe at school, Dr. Patterson began. Today we learn how. Hattie squeezed Eli's shoulder. I'll be right here when recess starts. He nodded, allowed Chen to walk him to class. The morning crawled. Hattie tried to work from her phone in the parent resource room, but her attention kept drifting to the window overlooking the playground. At 10:15, children poured outside. The changes were visible immediately. Orange cones marked a quiet corner with foam mats and weighted lap pads. A movement path traced the playground's edge for kids who needed to pace. At the picnic tables, older students wore bright yellow buddy captain badges. Eli emerged slowly, hovering at the door. Sophia appeared beside him, a practice drum tucked under her arm. Want to try something? He nodded. She led him to the quiet corner, sat cross-legged on a blue mat. The drum between them caught sunlight. Feel the rhythm first. She placed his palm on the drum's surface, tapped a simple pattern. The vibration traveled through his hand. His eyes widened. Now you. His first attempts were chaotic, too hard, too fast. Sophia didn't correct, just kept her own steady beat. Gradually, Eli's rhythm aligned with hers. Other children drifted closer, drawn by the sound. Can I try? A first grader with thick glasses approached. Sophia looked at Eli. He hesitated, then shifted to make room. 3 kids became 5, became 8. Not all participating, some just swaying, some humming. Mason Lang stood at the edge, watching. When Sophia waved him over, he shook his head but didn't mock, didn't mimic. Progress measured in absent cruelty. A teacher with a clipboard noted interactions. Parents stationed around the playground observed. Some children pointed at the mats, giggled at the baby stuff. But when Tommy Morrison, the school's star pitcher, casually grabbed a weighted pad for his anxious friend, the laughter stopped. Leadership by example, Chen had called it. When the bell rang, Eli handed the drum back reluctantly. Tomorrow? He asked Sophia. Every day, if you want. He smiled, small, brief, but real. Hattie's chest tightened with something between relief and joy. That evening, she made Eli's favorite, plain pasta with exactly 6 meatballs. He arranged them in a perfect hexagon before eating. Today was better, he said suddenly. Yeah? The drum helped, the mat helped, Sophia helped. I'm glad. He pushed a meatball clockwise. Were you different in school? The question surprised her. Different how? Like me different. She set down her fork. Not exactly like you, but yes, different. Tell me. So she did. Told him about being the only black girl in advanced math. About eating lunch in the library because the cafeteria was too loud, too mean. About teachers who said she was too sensitive when she cried from frustration. But you're strong now, Eli said. I learned to be, but I was always smart, always valuable, just like you. He absorbed this, tapping his fork against his plate in a rhythm she recognized, the one Sophia taught him. The boys didn't say mean things today. Good. But they looked at me. People will always look, baby. What matters is how you look back. I don't like looking at faces. Then look past them. Look at what you're building. What am I building? She thought of Chen's determination. Sophia's patience, the growing circle of children around that drum. A place where different is okay, where different is good. He returned to his hexagon of meatballs, adjusting one that had shifted. That's a lot to build. Good thing you're not building alone. Outside, November darkness came early, but inside their small kitchen held warmth. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The board hearing loomed. Victor's threats hadn't vanished, and change came slowly to towns like Cedar Ridge. But today, Eli had smiled at recess. Today was enough. Today was everything. Wednesday morning brought the kind of autumn chill that made breath visible and jackets necessary. Daniel stood outside Cedar Ridge Elementary with a clipboard, watching 15 officers pile out of personal vehicles. No cruisers, no uniforms, just neighbors in navy polos with small blue and gold buddies pins. Remember what we discussed, Daniel addressed them near the flagpole. We're guests here. Follow the kids' lead. Officer Patricia Kowalski, a grandmother of 4, adjusted her reading glasses. My third graders are expecting me for fractions. Can't let them down. The group dispersed across campus. Some headed to classrooms, others to the new garden boxes stacked near the maintenance shed. Daniel watched them go, then made his way to the playground where morning recess had just begun. Eli sat alone on a bench, his notebook balanced on his knees. His pencil moved in careful strokes as he watched the fence line. Daniel approached slowly, stopping a respectful distance away. Mind if I look at what you're drawing? Eli glanced up, then back at his paper. After a moment, he tilted the notebook slightly. Daniel saw neat rows of bird sketches, surprisingly detailed for a 10-year-old's hand. That's a house finch, Officer Marcus Webb said, joining them. Marcus was young, barely 25, with a genuine enthusiasm that made kids gravitate toward him. He pointed to a small brown bird pecking at grass seeds. See the red on his head? Eli's pencil stopped moving. He studied the bird, then added a splash of red to his sketch. You know birds? Daniel asked Marcus. My grandfather taught me, used to wake me at dawn to go bird watching. Marcus crouched down, eye level with Eli. Want to know a secret? Cardinals mate for life. When you see one, its partner is always nearby. Eli's eyes tracked across the playground until he spotted a flash of red in the oak tree. His finger traced an invisible line to another cardinal on a lower branch. Without speaking, he drew both birds on a fresh page, connected by a curved line. From across the playground, Hattie watched the interaction through the chain-link fence. She'd arrived early to drop off Eli's afternoon medication, but found herself lingering. The sight of her son engaged, not overwhelmed, loosened something in her chest. Inside the second-grade classroom, Officer Kowalski sat cross-legged on the reading carpet, surrounded by 7-year-olds. Her voice carried through the open window as she read about a brave little tugboat. 2 children leaned against her shoulders, completely absorbed. Near the garden boxes, 3 officers helped 5th graders measure and cut lumber. Paint cans sat open on newspaper, and kids debated whether tomatoes or sunflowers would grow better in Ohio soil. Mason Lang worked at the far end, quiet but present, carefully painting a board forest green. Looking good, Officer James Thompson told him. Mason's brush paused, but he kept painting. By lunchtime, the transformation was subtle but unmistakable. Children who'd initially hung back now called officers by name. A group of 4th graders had convinced Marcus to join their soccer game, where he played goalkeeper with exaggerated dives that sent them into fits of giggles. Daniel found Hattie in the main office, signing Eli's medication form. Your son's got a real eye for detail, he said. Notice things about those birds I missed. He notices everything. Hattie's voice carried both pride and worry. "Sometimes I think that's why the world is so hard for him. He can't filter it out like the rest of us." Maybe that's not something that needs fixing. Principal Chen emerged from her office, a stack of feedback forms in her hand. "First reports from teachers. Want to hear?" She read snippets. "Students more engaged. Unexpected connections forming. Never seen my shy kids open up like this." "It's working," Chen said simply. "Whatever you two are building, it's working." That afternoon, Hattie composed an email from her office at SwiftSpan. She attached Chen's preliminary reports, photos of children painting and reading, and a brief video of Eli showing his bird drawings to Marcus. She sent it to the entire board with the subject line, "Neighbors First, Day 3 Update." Victor's office sat 3 doors down. She could see his light on but heard nothing. No response came to her email, not even a read receipt. By 5 o'clock she'd checked her inbox 6 times. Other board members had replied with cautious enthusiasm, but Victor's silence felt deliberate, heavy. Daniel called as she drove home. "How'd the board take the update?" "Most seem positive. Victor hasn't responded." "He will. Good news is hard to argue with." Through her rearview mirror, Hattie saw Eli in the back seat, drumming on his thighs to some internal rhythm. His notebook lay open beside him, filled with bird drawings and carefully printed names: House Finch, Northern Cardinal, American Robin. "Daniel," she said, "thank you for today, for making this feel possible. Not just me. Takes a whole community to—" "I know, but you started it. You walked onto that playground with 30 officers and chose play over power." Silence stretched between them, comfortable and warm. "Same time tomorrow?" Daniel asked. "Same time." That night, Hattie's laptop stayed open on the kitchen counter, inbox still empty of Victor's response. Friday dawned bright and cloudless over Cedar Ridge. Cars packed the school parking lot by 8:30, spilling onto side streets. Families carried folding chairs and coolers, transforming the campus into something between a carnival and a town meeting. Eli pressed his face against the car window as Hattie searched for parking. Red and blue streamers twisted from the fence posts. A banner stretched across the main entrance. "Unity Day, better together." "Lots of people," Eli said, his fingers already drumming against his seatbelt. "We can leave any time you need to." Hattie squeezed his shoulder. "Just give me the signal." Principal Chen's voice crackled over a portable speaker as they approached the playground. "Before we begin our activities, I want to show you something special. A gift to our school from an anonymous donor who believes in what we're building here." She pulled a cord, and a green tarp fell away. The new playground equipment gleamed in the morning sun. Where old metal monkey bars once stood, musical stations now lined the perimeter, chimes that sang in the breeze, rain sticks mounted at child height, and in the center, a professional-grade steel drum station with mallets hanging from braided rope. Eli's hand stilled. His eyes tracked every detail of the drum station, the way light caught the metal bowls, how they were arranged in a perfect semicircle. "Go ahead," Hattie whispered. "It's for everyone." He walked forward slowly, as if the drums might disappear. His fingers traced the rim of the largest pan before lifting a mallet. The first note rang clear and true, then another. Soon, a rhythm emerged, complex and beautiful. Sophia appeared beside him with her practice drum. "Want to try something together?" She started a simple beat. Eli listened, head tilted, then wove his pattern through hers. The two rhythms danced around each other, sometimes meeting, sometimes diverging, always connected. Children stopped playing to watch. Parents turned from their conversations. "That's my son," Hattie heard herself say to no one in particular. The crowd began clapping to the beat. Some children swayed. A toddler bounced in her father's arms. When the duet ended, applause erupted across the playground. Eli's face transformed. Not quite a smile, but something luminous and private. Mason Lang stood near the garden boxes, watching. After a moment, he walked over to the drum station. "Can you teach me?" he asked Eli. Eli studied him, then handed him a mallet. He pointed to the middle pan, tapped a simple pattern, and waited. Mason copied it. Eli nodded and added another layer. Soon 3 more children had joined, each learning their part in Eli's expanding composition. "Look at that," Daniel said, appearing at Hattie's elbow. "Your boy's conducting an orchestra." The morning unfolded in waves of activity. Officers manned craft stations. Parents served hot dogs and lemonade. Reverend Lila's church choir performed on the basketball court, their voices carrying across the grounds. At noon, Principal Chen unveiled the mural wall, a blank white surface stretching 20 feet along the playground's edge. Tables held paint trays in every color imaginable. "This will be our community wall," Chen announced. "Every handprint represents our promise to support each other." The youngest children went first, shrieking with delight as paint squished between their fingers. They pressed their tiny hands to the wall, leaving perfect prints. Older students followed, then parents, then officers. Each print overlapped slightly with others, creating a river of color. Eli hung back until Sophia dipped her hand in blue paint. "Together?" she asked. He chose green, the color of spring birds. They pressed their hands side by side on the wall. Hattie added hers in purple just above, creating a small constellation of belonging. The prints began forming a pattern without anyone planning it, spiraling outward from the center like a galaxy, like infinity, like hope made visible. Officer Marcus added his handprint next to an elderly grandmother's. Mason placed his beside Eli's green one. Victor Lang watched from the parking lot but didn't approach. By 3 o'clock, hundreds of handprints covered the wall. Principal Chen had tears on her cheeks. Daniel stood with his officers, all of them paint-splattered and grinning. "This," Chen said into the microphone, "this is who we are." The crowd lingered as afternoon stretched toward evening. Children played on the new sensory equipment, spinning wheels that caught the light, textured panels for touching, quiet corners with built-in benches for those who needed space. Daniel found Hattie sitting in one of those corners, watching Eli teach a group of first graders his drum patterns. "This playground," he said, "it's perfect. Whoever funded it understands these kids." Maybe they just wanted to help. Maybe. He studied her face. Either way, they changed everything today. Look at these kids. Look at Eli. Her son stood at the center of 6 children, all drumming together, all keeping time. His shoulders were relaxed. His face was calm. After dinner at home, Hattie was loading the dishwasher when the doorbell rang. Daniel stood on her porch holding a small potted plant. Sophia said Eli likes routine, thought he might enjoy watering this each morning. It's a butterfly plant, should attract them by summer. "You didn't have to." "Thank you," Daniel interrupted gently. "For today, for that playground, for giving these kids what they needed." Hattie opened her mouth to deny it, then stopped. They stood in the doorway, understanding flowing between them without words. "Same time Monday?" she asked. "Same time." Saturday morning arrived with false peace. Hattie woke to Eli drumming softly on his nightstand, matching the rhythm of sparrows outside his window. She made pancakes, his Saturday tradition, cutting them into perfect squares the way he liked. Her phone buzzed on the counter, then again and again. The first text came from her assistant. "Check Cedar Ridge Daily Blog, now." Her stomach dropped as she opened the link. The headline screamed, "CEO's secret playground donation, charity or corporate cover-up." The blogger had somehow obtained donation records, bank transfers, screenshots of private conversations. Every detail of her anonymous gift was laid bare, twisted into something ugly. Sources suggest Green leveraged her relationship with local police to manufacture positive publicity following her son's viral incident. The pancakes burned. More alerts flooded in. Twitter was already dissecting her motives. Facebook groups debated whether she'd orchestrated the entire week. Someone had created a meme of her face on a puppet master controlling tiny police officers. Her phone rang. Victor Lang. "Hattie, His voice was ice. "I'm resigning. Effective immediately." "Victor, wait." "Personal family reasons." That's the official line. "But we both know this circus you've created makes my position untenable." "I didn't create anything. I protected my son." "By turning the company into a political lightning rod? Check your email." The line went dead. Her laptop showed a new message from Victor, CC'd to the entire board. His resignation letter was professional, brief, but attached were dozens of emails between her and Principal Chen, selectively edited, certain phrases highlighted. "We need to control the narrative. This could benefit everyone if handled right. The company's reputation matters." Every word, written late at night, exhausted and worried about Eli, now looked calculating. Within an hour, Cedar Ridge Daily had the emails. The headline updated, "Breaking, leaked emails show CEO pressured school for positive spin." Hattie sank into a kitchen chair. Eli appeared in the doorway, still in his dinosaur pajamas. "The pancakes smell wrong," he said. She looked at the smoking pan, the ruined breakfast, her shaking hands. "I'll make new ones." "You're upset." Not a question. Eli noticed everything. "Just some work stuff, baby." He studied her face, then returned to his room. She heard his door click shut, then the rhythmic thump of his drums, faster than usual, agitated. The doorbell rang at noon. Daniel stood on her porch in jeans and a faded Marines t-shirt, holding a grocery bag. "Figured you hadn't eaten," he said. "Did you see?" "Everyone's seen. Can I come in?" She stepped aside. He moved through her kitchen with surprising familiarity, pulling out ingredients for sandwiches. She watched him work, too exhausted to help or protest. "Victor leaked those emails," she said. "I know. People think I used you. Used the department. I know that too. Doesn't it bother you?" Daniel set down the knife and looked at her. "What bothers me is that you're in pain. What bothers me is Eli's door hasn't opened in 3 hours." She glanced toward the hallway. The drumming had stopped. "He knows I'm upset. He's probably convinced it's his fault." "Is that what you think?" "I think I'm about to lose everything." The words tumbled out. "My reputation. Maybe my company. The board's already texting about emergency meetings. All because I wanted to help. Because I couldn't stand seeing those kids without proper equipment, without safe spaces. So you'd do it differently?" She considered lying. "No." "Then what's the problem?" "The problem is I have employees depending on me, shareholders. A son who needs stability." Daniel slid a sandwich across the counter to her. "Eat." She took a mechanical bite. Turkey and Swiss, mustard, not mayo. Somehow he'd known. "Can I tell you something?" Daniel asked. "When Elena died, my wife, I thought my world ended. Single dad, teenage daughter, job that everyone suddenly had opinions about. You know what saved me?" She waited. "Deciding what mattered, not what looked good or felt safe. What mattered. Sophia mattered. Being the kind of cop Elena believed I could be mattered. Everything else was just noise. Easy to say when you're not watching your life's work crumble." "You think this is easy for me?" His voice stayed gentle. "Half the force thinks I'm grandstanding. The other half thinks I'm going soft. My captain's getting calls demanding I be reassigned. But Monday morning I'll be back at that school. You know why?" Eli's door opened. He stood in the hallway, drumsticks in hand. "Hungry," he announced. Daniel made him a sandwich without being asked, cutting it into triangles. Eli ate standing up, tapping his drumsticks against his leg. "Mom's sad," Eli said to Daniel. "Yeah, she is." "Because of me. Because of the playground." Hattie reached for him, but he stepped back. "No, baby, never because of you. The kids were mean. Then the officers came. Then the playground. Now Mom's sad." His logic was heartbreaking in its simplicity. Daniel knelt to Eli's eye level. "You know what patterns are, right?" Eli nodded. "Sometimes we think we see a pattern, but we're missing pieces, like thinking the drum makes noise because you hit it. But really, it's because the skin vibrates. Then the air moves. Then our ears pick it up. Lots of steps we don't see." Eli considered this. Your mom's sad because some adults are being unkind, not because of you, not because of the playground, because sometimes adults forget what matters. What matters? Daniel glanced at Hattie. That's what we're trying to figure out. That evening, after Eli had returned to his room, Hattie and Daniel sat at her kitchen table surrounded by empty coffee cups and her silent phone. What if I lose everything I built? She asked. My company, my reputation, all because I tried to protect my boy. Daniel reached across the table, not quite touching her hand. Then maybe it's time to decide what matters most. Monday dawned gray and bitter. Hattie checked her phone before her feet hit the floor. A mistake. The story had jumped from local blogs to CNN's morning scroll. Small town, big questions, when police PR goes wrong. Her stomach churned. Downstairs, Eli sat at the breakfast table, his left wrist still tender from Saturday's playground stumble. He'd arranged his cereal pieces in perfect rows, eating them one column at a time. School today? Yes, baby. Will the officers be there? I don't know. His spoon paused mid-air. Changes to routine unsettled him, and the officers had become part of his new normal. The parking lot swarmed with news vans. Protesters lined the walkway, some holding "Cops Out Now" signs, others with "We Support Unity" in blue banners. Cameras swung toward Hattie's car. She gripped the wheel tighter. Many people, Eli observed. Stay close to me. They'd made it 3 steps when the shouting started. Voices crashed together, accusations, defenses, anger from both sides. Eli pressed his palms over his ears. A reporter shoved a microphone forward. Hattie pushed through, Eli stumbling beside her. Inside, Principal Chen's face looked haggard. Emergency PTA meeting, 2 o'clock. The board wants community input before Thursday's hearing. They're suspending the programs, aren't they? Ruth's silence was answer enough. At his precinct office, Daniel stared at his computer screen. Someone had dredged up Elena's death certificate, the traffic stop report from Indiana, even photos from her funeral. They'd twisted it into a conspiracy theory. Corrupt cop silences wife, uses sympathy for promotion. The comments beneath were vile. His desk phone rang. Captain Torres. Take the day, Daniel. I'm fine. That's an order. Let this blow over. Since when do we let online trolls dictate, Since they're camped outside with news crews. Go home. Daniel found Sophia in the kitchen, still in pajamas despite it being noon. Skipping school? Someone posted Mom's picture in my Instagram comments. Said you killed her. The words hit like shrapnel. Daniel pulled his daughter close. You know that's not... I know, Dad, but they don't care about truth. His phone buzzed, a text from his team. Board suspended, all programs were locked out. By 2 o'clock, the elementary school cafeteria crackled with hostile energy. Parents packed the rows, reporters lined the walls, and Principal Chen struggled to maintain order at the podium. Hattie kept Eli in the back corner near the exit. She'd promised him 5 minutes. If it got too loud, they'd leave. This militarization of our schools has to stop. A parent near the front stood. 30 officers for 1 child? It's excessive. They were already there, someone countered. Volunteering, reading to our kids. Classic PR move. Soften us up then. Then what? Teach our children that officers are human beings? The volume climbed. Eli's breathing quickened. Hattie rubbed his back in slow circles. The CEO bought that playground to cover for them, someone shouted. She donated before any of this happened. How convenient that her son... Don't you dare bring that child into this. Eli jerked at the reference. His drumsticks dropped, clattering on linoleum. The sound drew attention. Cameras swiveled. Flashes exploded. Stop, Hattie stood. No pictures of children. More flashes. Eli bolted from his chair, hands over his eyes. His foot caught the metal leg. He went down hard, his left wrist taking the impact. The crack was audible. Eli's scream cut through everything. Hattie dropped beside him, his wrist bent at an unnatural angle. Call 911. Through the chaos, she saw Daniel pushing through the crowd. He'd come despite the suspension, despite everything. "Let me help." "No." The word ripped from her throat. "Get away from us." "Hattie, you brought this storm to my son." The accusation erupted, raw and primal. "We were fine before you, before your 30 officers and your programs and your—" Daniel stepped back as if struck. Around them, cameras captured every second. "Mom, hurts," Eli whimpered. The ambulance arrived in minutes. As paramedics lifted Eli onto the stretcher, Hattie caught Daniel's expression, devastated, accepting the blame she'd thrown at him. Sophia stood beside him, her face twisted with hurt and anger. At the hospital, they set Eli's wrist under light sedation. He woke confused, cast heavy on his arm. "The officer?" he asked groggily. "We don't need to worry about that. He helped before, when the boys were mean." "I know, baby. Is he sad now?" Hattie couldn't answer. She thought of Daniel's face, how he'd absorbed her words without defending himself, how Sophia had looked at her with such disappointment. That night, Daniel sat with Sophia on their porch steps. Neither had eaten dinner. "She blamed you," Sophia said, "after everything you did. She's scared people say things when they're scared. Mom would never. Your mom was perfect, but she was also human, and she'd want us to give others the same grace she gave, even when they don't deserve it, especially then." Inside, Daniel's phone sat silent. No text from Hattie, no apology. He didn't expect one. The bridge they'd built lay in pieces, and maybe that was for the best. Some storms weren't meant to be weathered together. Reverend Lila's dining room smelled of chamomile tea and fresh cornbread. Hattie sat with her head bowed, unable to meet the older woman's steady gaze. "I attacked him in front of everyone, in front of his daughter." "You were protecting your child." "No," Hattie's voice cracked. "I was afraid, and I made him the target." Reverend Lila poured more tea, her movements deliberate and calm. The grandfather clock ticked in the corner. "Fear makes us lash out," she said finally. "But love listens first. Which one are you choosing now?" "I don't know if I can face him. Or Sophia. The way that girl looked at me." "Like you'd betrayed something precious?" Hattie nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Good. That means it was precious, worth fighting for." Reverend Lila reached across the table, took Hattie's hands. "You can't unbreak what shattered yesterday, but you can decide what you'll build tomorrow." 2 hours north, Daniel drove through unfamiliar Indiana streets while Sophia navigated from her phone. They'd left Cedar Ridge at dawn, telling no one where they were going. "Left at the Blue House," Sophia said. "Dad, are you sure about this?" "Should have done it years ago." The house was modest, white siding with window boxes full of petunias. Angela Morrison answered on the second knock. Her face registered surprise, then something softer. "Sergeant Ortiz?" "Just Daniel now. This is my daughter, Sophia." Angela studied them both. "You better come in." Her living room was a shrine to friendship. Photos of Angela and Elena covered every surface. College graduation, beach trips, Elena's wedding, where Angela was maid of honor. "I should have called," Daniel said. "After. Should have checked on you." "I wouldn't have answered. I was too angry." "You had every right—" No, Angela interrupted. "I was angry at God, at the universe, at that undiagnosed condition that took her. But the police, you, became easier targets." She disappeared into the kitchen, returned with a small velvet box. "Elena was wearing this when she died. The other officers just did their job that night. But you stayed, held her hand while the paramedics worked, prayed with her." Daniel's throat tightened. Inside the box lay a small silver locket, Elena's mother's initials, engraved on front. She'd want Sophia to have it. Angela pressed it into his palm. "And Daniel, don't let them erase what you did that night, or what you're doing now. Elena would be proud." Sophia touched the locket gently. "She talked about you, said you were her chosen sister." "And she was mine." Angela hugged them both. Don't let bitter people steal your purpose. That's not what Elena would want. The drive home was quiet. Sophia held the locket, watching Indiana fade into Ohio. Mom would have liked Eli, she said suddenly. Yeah? She always noticed the quiet ones, the different ones, like someone else I know. That evening, Sophia knocked on the Greens' door. Hattie answered, her face puffy from crying. Is Eli home? Hattie hesitated, then stepped aside. His room. Sophia found Eli on his bed, cast propped on pillows, staring at his drumsticks on the nightstand. Can't play, he said without looking up. Sure you can. Sophia pulled out a practice pad from her backpack. Just differently. She started a slow rhythm, simple and steady. 4 beats, pause, 4 beats. After a moment, Eli reached for one drumstick with his good hand. He joined her pattern, tentative at first. They played without words. The rhythm said what needed saying. I'm sorry, you're not alone. We're still here. Through the doorway, Hattie watched. Sophia never looked up, just kept the beat going whenever Eli faltered. Patient, present. Everything Hattie hadn't been yesterday. When they finished, Eli set down his drumstick carefully. Your dad is good, he said. I know. My mom was scared. I know that too. Will he come back? To school? Sophia finally looked at Hattie, still in the doorway. That's not up to me. Later, after Sophia left, Hattie found Eli arranging his action figures in precise rows, his way of processing. Mom, the board thing is soon. 3 days. Will you speak? I have to. Will you say sorry? To the officer? Hattie sat beside him, careful not to disturb his arrangement. Yes. Good. Sorry fixes things sometimes. Not always, Hattie thought, but sometimes it was a start. Across town, Daniel sat in his kitchen, the locket on the table before him. Sophia had gone to bed wearing it, but not before making him promise something. We go to the hearing, Dad. Both of us. They don't want... I don't care what they want. We show up. For Eli. For what's right. Mom would. Now alone, Daniel opened his hands, whispered into the darkness. Give me courage. Not for me. For them. For all of them. Outside, Cedar Ridge slept uneasily. 3 days until the hearing. 3 days to decide what kind of town they'd choose to be. The wounded weren't defeated. Not yet. Hattie pulled Eli's dinosaur blanket up to his chin, careful not to jostle the cast. His eyes tracked the glow in the dark stars on his ceiling, counting in patterns only he understood. Mom? Yeah, baby? Am I bad because of me? The words landed like stones in her chest. She sat on the bed's edge, smoothing his forehead with her thumb. Look at me. His eyes found hers, dark and searching. You are perfect as God made you. Every rhythm you tap, every pattern you see, that's not wrong. That's gift. The world has to learn your rhythm, not the other way around. But Mason said, Mason was wrong and scared. People get scared of difference sometimes. Are you scared? Of losing you? Always? Of you being you? Never. Eli processed this, fingers drumming against his good thigh. 4 beats, pause, 4 beats, the pattern Sophia taught him. Will tomorrow be loud? Probably. Can I bring my headphones? Of course. And sit by Sophia? If she's there, she'll be there. He said it with complete certainty, the way he stated facts about bird migration patterns. Her dad, too. They don't leave. After he fell asleep, Hattie stood in his doorway, watching his chest rise and fall. 10 years old and already learning the world could be cruel to difference, she closed his door softly. Downstairs, her laptop screen glowed blank. The cursor blinked accusingly. She'd started 5 different versions of tomorrow's speech, each one carefully worded, professionally distant, designed to minimize damage to Swiftspan's reputation, each one a lie. She deleted the 5th attempt and stared at the empty page. Reverend Lila's voice drifted through her memory. Love listens first. But what came after listening? What words could bridge the gap between a mother's rage and a community's fear. Her phone buzzed. A text from Principal Chen. "Whatever you say tomorrow, say it true." True. Hattie's fingers hovered over the keys. Then she began typing. Not the polished CEO speech the board expected, but something rawer. The words came in rushes. About finding Eli rocking in corners at age 3, about the first time he played drums and his whole body calmed, about watching other parents pull their children away at parks, about being black and raising a black autistic son in a world that feared both those truths. She typed about Daniel's officers kneeling instead of towering, about play instead of power, about what it meant to see 30 strangers choose gentleness. She typed until her eyes burned. Across town, Daniel set Elena's locket on the kitchen table. The silver caught the overhead light, throwing tiny reflections across Sophia's face. "Mom wore this the day she died?" Angela said she never took it off. Sophia lifted it carefully, studying the engraved initials. EMO, Elena Marie Ortiz. "Your middle name comes from her." "I know." She opened the locket. Inside, a tiny photo, Daniel and Elena on their wedding day, both laughing at something off camera. "You look happy." "We were." "Are you happy now?" Daniel considered lying, giving her the parent answer designed to protect, but she'd asked for truth. "Sometimes. When you play drums. When you help kids like Eli. When I remember her without the grief choking me." "Is that why you never talk about that night? The traffic stop?" "Part of it." "What's the other part?" "Guilt? She was alone when it started. If I'd been there." "You were working, protecting other people." Sophia's voice carried her mother's firmness. "She wouldn't want you carrying that." "Maybe not, but I do." Sophia closed the locket, fastened it around her neck. It settled against her collarbone like it belonged there. "You can't hide behind old pain, Dad. Tomorrow, at that hearing, they need to hear who you are, not the uniform you." I wasn't planning to speak. Mom would. The simple truth of it hung between them. Elena would have stood up, spoken out, refused to let fear win. "They might not listen," he said. "Then at least you tried. At least Eli knows someone stood up for him." Daniel pulled Sophia close, kissed the top of her head. She still smelled like the vanilla shampoo Elena used to buy. "When did you get so wise?" "Tuesday, around 3 o'clock. He laughed despite everything. "I'll speak, but I need to wear the uniform." "Why?" "Because they need to see that the uniform doesn't make us less human. It should make us more." Sophia nodded, fingering the locket. "Mom would like Hattie." "Yeah?" "She's fierce about her kid. Mom was fierce about everything." They sat in comfortable silence, both preparing for tomorrow's storm. Through the window, porch lights flickered on across Cedar Ridge, families settling in for the night, unaware or uncaring about the battle ahead. "Dad, whatever happens tomorrow, we did right. Helping Eli, standing up to those kids, we did right." "How do you know?" "Because my chest doesn't feel tight when I think about it. When something's wrong, my chest gets tight. This feels clear." Daniel thought about all his years of policing, all the gray areas and hard choices. His daughter had distilled justice down to a feeling in her chest. Maybe she was onto something. "Get some sleep," he said. "Tomorrow will be long." "You too." But both knew sleep would be elusive. Across Cedar Ridge, two families sat awake, preparing to speak truth to a town afraid of change. The night held its breath, waiting. The gym smelled of floor wax and nervous sweat. Folding chairs stretched in tight rows, every seat filled. More people lined the walls, cameras raised. Through the high windows, protest signs bobbed like angry birds. "Cops out of schools," and "Protect not police," and "Safety first." Principal Chen stood at the podium, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "We're here to listen. Every voice matters. Please respect each speaker." The first parent gripped the microphone like a lifeline. "My daughter comes home crying. She's scared of the officers. We moved here from Chicago to escape that fear." Another mother followed. "My son has autism. The buddy program changed everything. He has friends now, real friends. Back and forth it went, fear and hope wrestling in the humid air. A teacher spoke next, voice cracking. I've taught 23 years, never seen kids care for each other like they do now. The sensory zones work, the buddy captains work. But at what cost? A father's voice boomed from the back. Normalizing police presence? Teaching our babies to trust badges? The crowd split, murmurs rising. Principal Chen raised her hand for quiet. A small voice cut through the noise. Can I talk? Everyone turned. A third grader stood on his chair, his buddy captain badge crooked on his shirt. I'm Marcus. I used to eat lunch alone. Now Tommy and me, we're buddies. Officer Dan taught us to plant tomatoes. They're growing real good. His mother pulled him down, embarrassed, but scattered applause rippled through the gym. Then Hattie rose. She moved to the podium without her usual CEO stride. No power suit today, just jeans and the same purple sweater Eli had picked that morning. I wrote 5 speeches last night, deleted them all. Her voice carried without the microphone, but she leaned into it anyway. I am a mother before I am a CEO. That's the only truth that matters today. The gym fell silent. My son Eli is 10. He's autistic. He's black. He drums on everything because rhythm makes sense when words don't. Last week, boys surrounded him, mocked his sounds, his skin, his beautiful, different mind. Her voice caught. She pressed on. I've built a company from nothing, negotiated million-dollar contracts, but I couldn't protect my baby from cruel children on a playground. Someone sniffled in the front row. Sergeant Ortiz and his officers didn't come with sirens. They came with games, with gentleness. They saw my son as human first. Do you understand how rare that is? She looked directly at the protesters visible through the window. I know your fear. I carry it every day. But fear makes us small. My son deserves a playground where he isn't mocked. Your children deserve to be seen, not shoved aside. All of them. She paused, scanning the crowd. The programs work, not because of police presence, but because of human presence, because someone finally said, every child matters, even the ones who drum different rhythms. She sat down to thunderous applause mixed with sharp dissent. Daniel stood slowly. He'd pressed his uniform that morning with extra care, each crease sharp. Sophia had polished his badge until it gleamed. But now, facing this crowd, the uniform felt heavy. He didn't start with prepared words. Instead, he pulled out his phone and showed a photo on the projector screen. Elena laughing at their kitchen table, very pregnant with Sophia. Elena Marie Ortiz. My wife. 16 years ago, she died during a traffic stop, undiagnosed heart condition. She was alone, scared. The officer did everything right, but she died anyway. Gasps echoed through the gym. I became a cop 3 years later. People asked why. How could I join the force that... He stopped, collected himself. Because that officer held her hand, sang her favorite hymn while waiting for the ambulance, called me himself, came to her funeral. The protesters' signs lowered slightly. I learned something that day. The uniform doesn't make us less human. It should make us more. He gestured to the side door. These are my officers, not in uniform today, just neighbors. They filed in. Mrs. Patterson, 63, grandmother of 7, known for her quilts at the farmer's market. James Cooper, youth basketball coach at the rec center. Marcus Williams, veteran with his golden retriever service dog Buddy. The crowd stared. These weren't faceless badges. These were the people who bagged their groceries, coached their kids, sat beside them at church. We painted libraries on our day off, Daniel continued. Not for overtime, not for PR. Because Eli once returned my lost badge charm at the farmer's market. Because kids like him deserve adults who see them. He pulled out the charm, held it up. A tiny drum, something Sophia had given him years ago. Fear asks us to build walls, but walls never protected anyone. Connection does. Showing up does. He looked at Hattie. She met his gaze, nodded slightly. My daughter taught me something. When you know what's right, your chest feels clear. This program, these kids, this feels clear. Marcus Williams' service dog padded forward, tail wagging, and gently nudged a crying toddler in the front row. The child giggled, reaching for soft fur. "We're not asking for blind trust," Daniel said. "We're asking for a chance to earn it, child by child, day by day." The gym erupted. Some stood and clapped. Others shouted objections. But something had shifted. The abstract had become personal. Fear had faces now, but so did hope. Principal Chen returned to the podium, but before she could speak, a voice called out, "I want to say something." Victor Lang stood in the back row, his son Mason beside him. The gym held its breath. Victor Lang's expensive shoes clicked against the gym floor. Every head turned. Mason shuffled beside him, shoulders hunched, eyes fixed on his sneakers. "I built my career on controlling narratives," Victor said, his polished voice carrying across the space. "Spin, damage control, making problems disappear." He stopped 10 feet from the podium. Mason's hand trembled in his. "But you can't spin away shame, and you can't control what your son learns from watching you." Mason lifted his head, found Eli in the front row, small beside his mother, cast bright white against his dark skin. "Go ahead, son." Mason took 3 steps forward, stopped, started again. "Eli." The gym held its breath. Eli's fingers stilled on his drumsticks. "I was mean, really mean. I said things about how you move, how you talk, about your skin." Several parents gasped. Hattie's jaw tightened. "I didn't understand. No, that's wrong. I didn't try to understand. I wanted the other kids to think I was cool. But making fun of you didn't make me cool. It made me small." Mason's voice cracked. "You found that police badge thing at the market. You notice stuff nobody else sees. That's actually amazing. I'm sorry I couldn't see it before. I'm sorry I hurt you." The silence stretched. Eli tapped his drumstick once against his leg, twice, 3 times. "I was wrong too," Victor said, stepping forward. "I told Mrs. Green to handle this quietly, to protect my reputation, my son's reputation. But reputation built on hiding truth isn't worth protecting." He turned to Daniel. "Sergeant Ortiz, your wife Elena should be remembered properly, not as a tragedy to exploit, but as a person who mattered." Victor pulled out his phone, fingers steady despite the tremor in his voice. "I'm pledging $100,000 to establish the Elena Marie Ortiz Memorial Scholarship for children in this district who show exceptional kindness, who notice what others miss, who drum to different rhythms." The protesters' signs outside dipped lower. One woman set hers down entirely. "I resigned from Swiftspan, not because Hattie forced me, but because I finally looked at what I was teaching my son. Competition over compassion, appearance over truth. That ends today." Mason moved closer to Eli. Maybe you could teach me the drums? I'll probably suck at it, but I want to try." Eli studied Mason's face. The gym waited, then Eli stood. Sophia's hand gentle on his shoulder, encouraging. He lifted his good hand, the one without the cast, and tapped his drumstick against the metal chair. Tap, tap, tap. Pause, tap, tap, tap. The rhythm simple, clear, an invitation. A kindergartner in the 3rd row picked up the pattern, slapping her hands on her knees. Tap, tap, tap. Pause, tap, tap, tap. Her older brother joined, then the family beside them. Mrs. Patterson started clapping the rhythm. James Cooper followed. Marcus Williams' service dog wagged its tail in time. The sound spread like ripples across water. Children first. They always understand rhythm before rules. Then parents, some reluctant, some eager. The officers along the wall picked it up, hands against their thighs. Tap, tap, tap. Pause, tap, tap, tap. Even the protesters, visible through the windows, caught the beat, their signs forgotten, hands moving despite themselves. The gym transformed into one massive heartbeat. Not perfect, some rushed, others lagged, but together, connected. Eli's face shifted, not quite a smile, but something close. He looked at Mason, then at his mother, then at the drumming crowd. "We can play together." 4 words, soft as breath, but they landed like thunder. Hattie's tears came fast, streaking her careful makeup. She didn't care. Her boy, her beautiful, brave boy, had found his voice in the rhythm of an entire town. Principal Chen gripped the podium, visibly shaken. The board members exchanged glances. The secretary, Mrs. Holloway, openly wept. The rhythm continued. Tap, 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 pause, tap, tap, tap. Daniel caught Hattie's eye across the crowd. She nodded, tears still falling. He nodded back. No words needed. The rhythm said everything. Sophia leaned close to Eli. "You did that. You brought them together." Eli tapped his rhythm, steady and sure. "Not me. Us." The board president, Mr. Garrett, stood slowly. He'd come prepared to shut down the programs, to avoid controversy, to protect the district from lawsuits. But watching his own granddaughter drumming beside a police officer's child, beside Eli, beside Mason, something cracked open in his chest. "Order," he called, but softly. "Please, order." The rhythm gradually faded, though a few children kept tapping quietly. I think we need to reconsider." "Everything." Board member Patricia Warren nodded. "This isn't what I expected." "No," Mr. Garrett said. "It's better." He looked at Eli, still standing with his drumstick raised. "Young man, would you like to say anything else?" Eli considered. The gym waited. He tapped 3 beats on his cast, his "I'm okay" signal to his mother. "Drumming makes sense. We should do more of it." Laughter rippled through the crowd, not mocking, warm, real. "Then let's vote," Mr. Garrett said. "All in favor of continuing and expanding the partnership programs with community input and oversight?" 5 hands rose immediately. The 6th, Mrs. Kellner, hesitated, then raised hers too. Unanimous. The gym erupted, not into chaos, but into that specific joy that comes when a community chooses hope over fear. The board members filed back to their seats after a brief recess. Mr. Garrett adjusted his microphone, papers trembling slightly in his hands. "After careful consideration and today's testimonies, this board has reached a decision." The gym fell silent. Even the protesters outside pressed against the windows. The partnership programs between Cedar Ridge Elementary and our police department will not only continue, they will expand. The room held its breath. However, these programs will operate under new guidelines created not by this board alone, but by a committee including parents, teachers, students, and especially voices from our Black, Latino, and neurodiverse communities who have been historically underheard. Mrs. Patterson stood first, applauding. Then James Cooper. Then the entire gym rose in thunderous approval. Children whooped. Parents embraced. The officers along the wall exhaled collectively. Eli covered his ears at the noise, but kept tapping his rhythm with one foot. Reporters surged forward, microphones extended, but this time their questions carried different weight. "Mrs. Green, Sergeant Ortiz, how does it feel to see the community unite?" A young journalist pushed closer. "You've both shown incredible resilience. What's next?" Hattie found Daniel's arm in the crowd, steadying herself against the press of bodies and questions. "What's next is work," she said clearly. "Real work. Not photo ops or viral moments. The everyday work of showing up for each other." Daniel nodded. "We're not heroes. We're neighbors. That's what this has always been about." The reporters scribbled notes, cameras rolling. But the story had shifted. No longer adversaries caught in conflict, Hattie and Daniel stood as examples of what happened when people chose connection over division. Principal Chen took the microphone. "Tonight, we celebrate. The cafeteria is open. Everyone's welcome." The crowd began moving, children racing ahead while parents followed. Eli stayed close to Hattie, his good hand in hers. "Too loud?" He shook his head. "Good loud." By 6 o'clock, the cafeteria transformed. Folding tables groaned under chili pots and cornbread pans. Hand-painted banners stretched across walls. Unity through rhythm. 30 hands together. Every beat matters. The church ladies commanded the serving line with military precision. Reverend Lila directed traffic while Mrs. Washington ladled portions that defied physics. "Growing boys need fuel," she declared, adding another scoop to Eli's bowl. Sophia appeared with her practice pad. "Want to learn something new?" Eli nodded eagerly. They found a quiet corner where the noise softened. She showed him a complex pattern, paradiddle, paradiddle, flam, breaking it down slowly. "Feel how it rolls? Like water over rocks." His concentration was absolute. Cast and all, he managed a simplified version that made Sophia grin. "You're getting it. By the time that cast comes off, you'll be teaching me." Across the cafeteria, Daniel and Hattie worked the serving line together, their movements synchronized without discussion. She'd ladle, he'd add cornbread, she'd pass napkins, he'd pour drinks. "You've done this before," Hattie observed. "Church fundraisers, police league barbecues, you?" "Corporate events mostly, though none quite like this." Their hands brushed, reaching for the same ladle. Neither pulled away immediately. "Thank you," Hattie said quietly, "for not giving up when I lashed out. Thank you for standing up there today. That took courage." "We both did." Mason Lang approached the serving table, his father behind him. The boy held his tray uncertainly. "Is it okay if I sit with Eli?" Hattie glanced at Daniel, then nodded. "Ask him, but yes." Mason walked to Eli's corner. The conversation was too quiet to hear, but Eli shifted, making space. Mason sat carefully, watching the drum patterns with genuine interest. "Never thought I'd see that," Victor said softly. "Children adapt faster than we do," Daniel replied. "I meant what I said. About the scholarship. My lawyer will have papers Monday." "Name it for kindness, not just for Elena. She'd want it to look forward." Victor nodded, taking his chili to a back table where other parents made room. The evening unfolded in small miracles. Officers helped children hang artwork. Parents who'd stood on opposite sides at the hearing now shared tables. The math teacher, Mr. Holbrook, taught interested kids to juggle while Officer Cooper's service dog performed tricks for delighted kindergartners. Someone had brought speakers. Music played, nothing too loud, Eli conscious, and a few brave souls started dancing. Sophia pulled her father onto the floor for a merengue that made everyone cheer. "You still remember," she laughed as he spun her. "Your mother taught me well." Hattie watched them, something warm blooming in her chest. Daniel caught her looking and extended his hand. "I don't really dance." "Neither do I. Perfect match." She took his hand. They swayed more than danced, two single parents finding rhythm in survival and hope. "Our kids are watching," Hattie murmured. "Good. Let them see adults choosing joy." Near 9 o'clock, exhausted children drooped against parents. The cafeteria began emptying slowly, people lingering, reluctant to let the evening end. Eli had fallen asleep against Sophia's shoulder, his drumstick still clutched in his good hand. "I'll carry him," Daniel offered. Together they walked to Hattie's car, Daniel carrying Eli while Hattie gathered his things. The boy stirred slightly as they buckled him in. "Good day?" "The best day," Hattie whispered. Daniel closed the door gently. They stood in the parking lot under stars visible despite the school lights. "This isn't ending," Daniel said. "What we built today. No, it's beginning." They didn't hug, didn't need to. The understanding ran deeper than gesture. "Coffee tomorrow to discuss the committee guidelines?" Hattie smiled. "Coffee, yes." Driving home, Eli mumbled from the back seat, "Mom, the drum sounds were everywhere." "Yes, baby, they were. We made them together." "We did." "Can we do it again?" Hattie glanced in the mirror at her son, cast and all, drumstick still in hand. "Every day if you want." Cedar Ridge slept differently that night. Not perfect. Perfection was never the goal. But whole in a way It hadn't been in years, together, in rhythm, finding the beat that connected them all. A week later, spring warmth finally reached Cedar Ridge. The church basement, where fear and hope had wrestled just days before, now buzzed with purposeful energy. Banners reading, "30 hands, many together, stronger forever," hung from walls that had witnessed tears and truth-telling. Reverend Lila adjusted the microphone, beaming. "Never thought I'd see my prayer closet turned into non-profit headquarters." "Just borrowing it," Hattie promised, straightening registration forms, "until we find proper space." "Child, this is proper space. Where else should healing begin but here?" Daniel arrived with Sophia, carrying boxes of training materials they'd spent the week assembling. Police officers out of uniform, teachers on spring break, parents who'd taken personal days, all converged with the focused energy of people who'd discovered common purpose. Principal Chen had brought her entire administrative team. "We're making this the model. Other districts are already calling." The ribbon stretched across the doorway, bright blue and gold, police and school colors woven together. Eli stood beside it, his cast now a patchwork of signatures and doodles. Officer Cooper had drawn a small dog. Mrs. Washington had written, "Keep drumming," in purple marker. Mason Lang had carefully printed, "Friends now," in the corner. "Ready?" Hattie asked her son. He nodded, gripping the scissors with his good hand. "Wait!" Sophia appeared with her phone. "This needs documenting." The crowd gathered closer. Daniel stood beside Hattie, not touching, but close enough that their shoulders nearly brushed. Parents who'd shouted at each other during the hearing now stood side by side. Victor Lang positioned himself near the back, but Mason tugged him forward. "We stand together or not at all," the boy said, repeating words he'd heard Daniel say. Reverend Lila raised her hands. "Before we cut this ribbon, let's remember why we're here. Not because we're perfect, Lord knows we're not, but because 30 hands reached out when one child needed help, and that reaching taught us we're stronger together than afraid alone." "Amen," several voices chorused. Eli cut the ribbon, needing 2 tries with his cast-limiting movement. The halves fell away to cheers and applause that shook the old basement walls. "Now," Reverend Lila announced, "we celebrate properly." Tables materialized as if by magic. The church lady's superpower. Food appeared, Mrs. Washington's chili naturally, but also Officer Martinez's grandmother's tamales, the Patel family's samosas, and Principal Chen's spring rolls. A feast born from every corner of Cedar Ridge. Sophia had brought her full drum kit, setting it up in the corner. "Eli, want to help me demonstrate rhythm therapy?" His face lit up. Despite the cast, he managed the bass drum while she handled the intricate work. The pattern started simple, boom tap tap, boom tap tap, but grew as others joined. Someone found spoons. Another grabbed a pot. The janitor, Mr. Franklin, produced maracas from nowhere. "Where'd those come from?" Someone laughed. "Man's got to have his secrets." The music built organically. No conductor, no sheet music, just people finding their place in the rhythm. Daniel grabbed a tambourine, shaking it with more enthusiasm than skill. Hattie laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. "You're terrible at that." "But committed," he grinned. Even Victor joined, hesitantly tapping a wooden spoon against his palm. His son Mason beamed, grabbing his father's free hand and pulling him deeper into the circle. The basement transformed into something beyond a non-profit launch. It became Cedar Ridge's heartbeat made audible. Teachers who'd felt helpless now had tools. Officers who'd been seen as threats were revealed as neighbors. Parents who'd pointed fingers now clapped hands. "Look at this," Principal Chen said to Hattie during a quieter moment. 6 months ago, if you'd told me." "I know." They watched Eli teaching a younger child his 3-tap pattern, patient, focused, sharing what he'd learned. "He's different," Chen observed. "Same kid, just finally has space to be himself." The afternoon stretched toward evening. Someone had brought paint for the new playground lines. sensory-friendly zones marked in soft blues and greens instead of harsh yellow. Victor knelt beside Mason, carefully filling in the stencils. "Dad, you're going outside the lines." "Story of my life lately. It's better that way." Victor looked at his son, paint on his expensive shoes, humility in his eyes. "Yes, it is." Daniel found Hattie outside watching the sun set over the playground. 30 hands, she said. Good name. Your idea. Our idea, like all of this. They stood quietly, comfortable in shared silence. "The grant applications are already coming in," Hattie continued. 3 districts want training by fall. We'll need more people. We'll find them. Look what we found already. Through the window, they could see the celebration continuing. Eli and Sophia still drumming, the crowd still swaying, the walls still standing despite the joyful noise. "Mom," Eli called through the door, "come drum." Hattie looked at Daniel. "Shall we? Together? Is there any other way?" They walked back into the music, into the crowd, into the future they were building hand by hand by hand. 30 had become hundreds. The circle kept growing. Cedar Ridge had found its rhythm at last. The Friday night lights of Cedar Ridge Stadium cast long shadows across the bleachers. 3 weeks had passed since the 30 Hands launch, and the town had settled into its new rhythm. Hattie climbed the aluminum steps, scanning for familiar faces in the crowd that had gathered for the middle school's homecoming game. "Up here," Sophia waved from the band section, Eli beside her with his drums. Hattie's breath caught. Her son sat straight-backed among the other musicians, his cast finally off, both hands gripping drumsticks like they belonged there, like he belonged there. "Saved you a spot?" Daniel appeared at her elbow, gesturing to a section just below the band. They settled onto the cold metal close enough to hear Eli practicing his patterns. Around them, Cedar Ridge filled the stands. Factory workers and tech employees, teachers and police officers, all wearing the school's blue and gold. "Mason's playing tonight." Daniel pointed to the field where the younger boys warmed up. "Victor's down there, nervous as anything." Sure enough, Victor Lang paced the sideline, his usual corporate composure replaced by pure parental anxiety. When he caught their eyes, he waved, a genuine gesture that would have been impossible months ago. The game started with typical middle school chaos, fumbled snaps, wrong routes, enthusiasm exceeding skill, but the crowd cheered every play like it was the Super Bowl. This was Cedar Ridge at its best, showing up for its kids. During a timeout, Sophia leaned down. "Wait till halftime. We've been practicing something special." Eli nodded eagerly, then tapped Hattie's shoulder 3 times. Their signal had evolved. Now it meant, "Watch this." The first half ended with Cedar Ridge down by 7, but nobody seemed to mind. The band director, Mr. Harrison, stepped onto the field. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's halftime show features something new. Our adaptive music program, led by student mentor Sophia Ortiz and featuring our newest percussion section leader, Eli Green." Hattie's hands flew to her mouth. "Section leader?" "You didn't know?" Daniel whispered. "He earned it. Kid never misses a beat." The band formed up, but instead of traditional lines, they created a spiral, an infinity symbol, like the mural at school. Eli stood at the center with 5 other drummers, each with different abilities, some with adaptive equipment. The stadium fell silent. Eli raised his sticks. For a moment Hattie saw not her little boy, but a young man finding his voice. He brought them down in a pattern she recognized, the same 3-beat rhythm he'd used at the hearing, but fuller now, layered with complexity. The other drummers joined, each adding their part. Some played traditional drums, others bucket drums. One used an electronic pad controlled by head movements. The diversity of sounds created something extraordinary, not despite their differences, but because of them. The full band entered, following Eli's lead. The music swelled, filling the stadium with joy that had nothing to do with perfection and everything to do with belonging. In the stands, people began clapping along. Not the polite applause of obligation, but the deep recognition of witnessing something real. Mrs. Washington wiped her eyes. Officer Martinez pumped his fist. Even the opposing team's crowd joined the rhythm. The performance built to a crescendo where every drummer played their own pattern simultaneously, chaos that somehow harmonized. Then Eli raised one stick high, and instantly they unified into a single, powerful beat that shook the bleachers. The crowd erupted. Standing ovation before the last note faded. Parents who'd once questioned the adaptive program now cheered the loudest. Eli's face glowed under the lights, not the overwhelmed brightness that preceded meltdowns, but pure joy. He'd found his stage. "That's your boy," Daniel said to Hattie, who was crying too hard to respond. After the band cleared the field, neither Hattie nor Daniel paid much attention to the second half. They watched their children, Sophia teaching Eli a new pattern on his practice pad, both of them lit by stadium lights and friendship. Cedar Ridge lost the game by 3 points, but the team ran victory laps anyway, high-fiving the band members. Mason found Eli and bumped his fist. "You killed it, man." As the crowd dispersed, families lingered on the track that circled the field. Kids ran ahead, tossing footballs and chasing fireflies that danced in the last warm night of fall. Hattie and Daniel walked slowly, in no rush to leave this moment. "3 months ago I couldn't imagine this," Hattie said, watching Eli race Sophia around the track, his laughter carrying across the field. "Which part?" "Any of it. Him up there leading, the town cheering for kids like him. You and me." She paused. "Walking together? I thought I had to fight alone. Thought that's what strength looked like. Turns out I just needed someone to walk with me." Daniel smiled, his hand brushing hers. "Together, we keep the beat." They'd reached the end zone where Eli and Sophia waited, breathless from running. Behind them, the scoreboard lights began shutting off one by one, but the field lights remained, illuminating their small group. "Mom, did you see? Did you see?" Eli's words tumbled out, more than he usually said in a whole day. "I saw everything." He raised his drumsticks high under the lights, victorious. Around them, other families called out good nights, car doors slammed, engines started. But for a moment, time held still. A mother, a son, and the family they'd found when they'd stopped fighting alone. Cedar Ridge wasn't perfect. It never would be. But it was kinder now, braver, more willing to make space for every rhythm. The lights finally dimmed, and they walked toward the parking lot together, Eli's drumsticks still raised high, conducting the stars. If you enjoyed the story, I hand-picked this next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.